Or maybe he had taken somebody else's body. We've all seen movies like that, haven't we, where somebody gets in somebody else's body? I mean, he was a spirit, and according to the Scriptures, other people were resurrected on that day too. There were saints walking all over Jerusalem, so maybe that had been dead for years. So maybe he took one of their bodies. Or maybe it was just like it was the other night. I was in Walmart, and I saw a young lady that I hadn't seen in a while, and never seen her in Walmart, seen her here, but at some of the church meetings, not at our worship services, but at some of the church meetings, and I saw her in different outfit than I usually see her. She was really dressed up, and I had a familiarity about her, but I didn't quite, she was out of context. And she was in dress clothes when I'm used to seeing her in jeans. And so I'm like, okay, it's out of context. I kind of know who this is, but I'm not quite sure who this is. So maybe it was one of those moments with Jesus that they were seeing him out of context. Maybe when he came out of the grave, he left his grave clothes. So I guess he was naked. So maybe he stopped at the nearest clothesline and took somebody else's clothes. Maybe, who knows? Maybe they were female clothes. Maybe he did have some red pumps. Who knows what he was wearing? All we know is he caught up with these people, and they don't quite recognize who that is. And that just puzzles me. How would any of us not recognize Jesus if he's standing right with us? If he's walking with us, how can I not know if I've been serving him all these years, if I have been following his teachings all these years? How would I not recognize him if he's walking right here with us? I mean, part of it, I guess, could be they're not expecting Jesus to be standing there walking with them. All they know is Jesus tests them. He says, well, why are y'all so upset? Y'all look sad. And they're like, are you the only person in town who hasn't heard what happened today? Jesus' body has been stolen. And they tell the story right to his face, and it's about him. And they still don't recognize him. Well, I don't know that we will ever know the reason or to know how Jesus pulled that off. We may not know until we get to the other side how Jesus did that. But we might know why Jesus did that. I had a little insight this week about why Jesus would do such a thing. Why did Jesus do that? Because he didn't have to do that. The story would have still been real had he not appeared to them. But you know how Jesus is. He's always wanting to teach people lessons until he was totally away. And here's one of the things that I think Jesus had on his mind. He knew he was about to leave his human body. He knew he wasn't going to be here to be in their presence physically anymore. His time on earth was about up. So there were a few things he needed to do. You know, those last minute things that you need to go ahead and make sure everybody does. If a person knows they're about to pass on, they will usually want to see certain people and say certain things, or maybe they've got a bucket list of things they want to do. So maybe Jesus had to impart one last bit of information. Notice, too, that when Jesus is invited in, you see, they did what they were supposed to do. You're never to let a stranger, in their tradition, you were not to let a stranger walk away when you were about to sit down and have food. You're supposed to invite them in and say, come on in and eat with us. You heard Tom say a while ago, we have potluck today. Even if you didn't bring something, come on and eat with us. Absolutely right. It's not just Jewish tradition. It's good MCC potluck tradition too. And I like that. We're all welcome. Jesus, in that moment that he's having a meal with them, finally, somehow or another, I don't know if it was something he said, or the way he said it, or if it's some action that he performed. All I know is at some moment while they're having that meal, their eyes are opened to Jesus. They actually know who they're talking to. Finally, it dawns on them, oh my God, we've been talking to this guy about this guy. This is him. He's sitting in our presence. He's right in front of us. How could we be so foolish? We've been sitting here crying in all of his presence, and instead of enjoying every moment that we could get out of it, when maybe we had 1,000 other questions we'd like to ask him, and instead we've been here just caught up in our own little story. Come on. Caught up in ourselves. And didn't even recognize the one that was sitting right here at the table with us. And I think in that moment, Jesus used a Hindu word to them, and that word being namaste. And then he disappeared. It said as soon as they knew who it was, he disappeared out of their presence. Now, I don't know if he became poof like a spirit, a ghost, or whatever would have, or if he just said, got to go, and left them. I don't know how he left them. All I know is he left them sitting there bewildered and probably had a lot more questions. And here's why I think Jesus did it. I think Jesus wanted them to realize that even when we're walking with a stranger, we need to see Christ in them. Maybe we are walking in the presence of Jesus himself and we just don't know it. And maybe that person is acting out in a way that we are not very pleased with. But maybe instead of reacting, out of ourselves and our own ways, maybe we should stop just a moment and say namaste to them. Now, I realize that in the Hindu, that was just a greeting, a sort of a salutation you say to people in history and then when you got ready to leave. But in modern times, this has become a greeting that, you know how we Christians like to hijack other religion stuff. And we've done that with that word. And it's come to mean that when I see a fellow child of God and I say namaste, it means that the Christ in me recognizes the Christ in you. What if we all lived that way? What if Jesus stayed back so that he could say, wait just a minute, I'm not going to be here in bodily form anymore, but you got to start watching for me if you're truly my disciple, if I'm truly living in you, if you have taken me on as a way of life, if you've taken me on not just as a person, but I'm an experience. I am a lifelong experience. If I have built my forever home, for you pet lovers know what that is. If I have built my forever home in your heart, in your life, if you really want to follow my life's teachings, then you have to start recognizing me in each other, because I'm not going to be here for you to recognize me in bodily form anymore. So maybe I look like that bodily form, and that one, and that one, and that one, and that one, and go down the rows. Maybe this is what Christ looks like now.
Thank you, Lord. Thank you.
Maybe, just maybe, it's time for us to start recognizing Christ in each other. You know, we Christians have a reputation to the rest of the world of trying to shove Jesus down people's throats and say, you're going to accept Jesus and you're going to live the way we do, and if you don't believe the way we do, then you're going to burn in hell for all eternity. Boy, that's encouraging to people, isn't it? We're real good at it, though. Some of us are really, really, really good at that. But what if instead of doing that, we start recognizing that that stranger beside of me and that my neighbor, maybe I need to learn to recognize Christ in them. Well, what if they're not a Christian? Doesn't mean they can't have Christ in them. I know some of you are going to have to go home and think on that one. That's okay. I want you to. I hope it prompts you to do some study and some prayer and some fasting and asking God, what does that mean? Check with Ann Rice. She'll help you. But maybe if we all follow Christ's teachings, we can start following Christ's example, and we can start having every meal with Jesus sitting right there. We can have every church service with Jesus sitting right beside of us. We can meet total strangers, and maybe we don't know them. But maybe we do, if we just look. So maybe it's time we start walking a mile in somebody else's pumps, in somebody else's boots, in somebody else's sandals, in whatever kind of shoes they have, and recognize Christ in all of them. Would you pray? Would you pray with me? God, thank you for this time we've had in your house. Help us today, God, to see you in one another. Not just the ones of us that